house. Marcus was still in high school. Roman was in college, I believe, or had just left college or something. So Roman was an adult as well. Marcus was still in high school. And Marcus played sports, and his lifestyle was just completely different. But I was on it, right? I'm just all hands on deck, mom, with each of you all. And I remember one day walking in the house and just being impressed with this thought, and it freed me to help me let go, help me release. He said, what I believe God spoke to me, what I was impressed with was, I heard these words: I know you love him. I know you love him, but you will never love him more than I do. You will never be able to be everywhere he is every given moment of the day.
Hmm.
There are things that he needs to go through before he sees me. And I believe this was God speaking to me and impressing this upon my heart and my mind. And I remember standing there and physically, spiritually, emotionally, intellectually, psychologically letting go. It was as though that sense, that voice, that impression released me that day from having the responsibility of being in control, because as a mom, you're innately, you want to protect your kids, and you want to guard your kids, and you want to direct your kids, and you have all of these. And I was delivered from an unhealthy approach to my parenting. And at that time, like I said, Marcus was in high school and Roman was just into going into, well, he was in college, out maybe on the other side of college. But and then even the same was true for Roman. I remember so clearly because Roman has always been just a very free thinker and adventurous, going to do his own thing. And I just heard very clearly one day regarding him specifically, was like, he doesn't need you to micromanage him. He doesn't need you to micromanage him. So if moms often will run into far more turbulence than we ought, because we don't know when to let go. We don't know how to let go. And we don't know how to operate at that level of trust. So it became a journey for me of trusting God even more, because I wasn't the one that was going to be there talking and guiding and teaching and having expectations and all. So it was a process
Yeah.
of letting go. It was a process.
So there's a thought around, your the challenges that you experience with your children are directly tied to the growth that you need for yourself.
Yes.
The
Yes.
challenges you experience with your children are directly tied to the growth you need within yourself. So there's this bi-directional thing going. And at times it's so easy as a parent to just think, well, I'm the authority. I'm older than you. I've seen it all. I've done it all. I know, right? And you should just listen to me. And when you're young, when the children are younger, that's absolutely like 99% of the time that's true, right?
Right.
99% of the time, because it is just absolutely true. But
Right.
as we get older, the little bit of a nuance that I want to add to what you just said is, if you think about life through, so I'm an entrepreneur, we run businesses and all these things. And you think about like running a business and making a business decision. Your business decision is not necessarily made based upon it being free of challenge, right?
Mm.
I'm making this decision because there are no challenges on this path, right? A true business person sees the challenges, still makes a decision because they think that the positive outcomes outweigh the challenges in front of them, right? And I think that in terms of what you mentioned about having to develop trust within yourself for God, right? So like understanding that, hey, what I'm experiencing with my children is actually helping me to trust God more and to maybe trust my child more as well. I think that some of that distrust prior to that is the assumption that, oh, this child is blind. I see
Right.
something from my vantage point. They can't see it. They're so in love. They're so blinded by X, Y, and Z. And for me, I can speak only for myself. There would be times where you would tell me stuff and I say, yep, I see the same thing, but God still told me to go that way. It's
Right.
not blind movement. Having to develop trust within yourself for God, right? So like understanding that, hey, what I'm experiencing with my children is actually helping me to trust God more and to maybe trust my child more as well. I think that some of that distrust prior to that is the assumption that, oh, this child is blind. I see
Right.
something from my vantage point. They can't see it. They're so in love. They're so blinded by X, Y, and Z. And for me, I can speak only for myself. There would be times where you would tell me stuff and I say, yep, I see the same thing, but God still told me to go that way. It's
Right.
not blind movement. My eyes are wide open. And I might be asking God the same thing. Well, why you want? I can see so many landmines on this path, so many roadblocks along this path, so many challenges to overcome along this path. But Stephen, I still want you to go that way. And that is a nuance that I think when parents, or just people in general, but when parents can understand that maybe you have done your job so well that the things that you're afraid of, it's not because your child doesn't see them. It's just like that's the path for them. You can't control that. It's still the path for them.
Right.
It's not, you can never clear all obstacles out of anybody's way. That's not
Yeah.
living. Obstacles are, there's a book I read recently. The obstacle is the way, is the title of the book. The
Wow.
obstacle is the way, right? And I thought that was such a great title because there's this assumption like the way is to avoid all obstacles. No, like maybe in your avoidance of the obstacle, you're actually missing out on the life that's meant for you. Because I'm so afraid of that obstacle. It looks so big. There's too many giants in the land. I'm not going to go that way. I'm not going to run to the giants. Well, no. What if I told you that's? What if I tell you that that's your land?
That's right.
Be aware that the giants are there. Know how much bigger and stronger than you they are, and still recognize, but that's where I'm being sent to go. That's where I'm being led to go. And I still have to go in spite of those things. And that's
Right.
been a big part of my journey for sure. It is, yeah, I can't see, I'm not going to ever claim I see everything, but I can see the challenges. I can even in our interactions. Yeah, I can see I can see the validity of that. I can see the truth of that. I can see the possibilities of that. I can see the potentialities of that. But when I go pray, I'm still led to go this way. I'm still led to go this way. Right.
Mhm.
So I think it's valuable as for parents to understand that it's not some, I actually had a meeting last night regarding, with parents and some other educators. And a topic was brought up about parents feeling responsible for their children's shortcomings, let's say, like that it somehow was a reflection on
Mhm.
their bad parenting. Like I must have done something to cause my child to do this, right? And therefore, because I feel some shame around this, or because I feel like I led this, I need to be the one to go and fix it. I need to be the one to, remove it and walk them through it and hold their hand and pick them up and take them over the obstacles. I should have done a better job of preparing them for this. When the reality is, again, we all have a good way to think about this is we all have tailor-made obstacles in our
Mhm.
lives, specific for us, specific for the purpose in our lives, specific to the path we are to take, that if you remove, you're actually doing more of a disservice
Right.
than a service.
True.
We need to fall down at certain points. We need to understand that, oh, I can't do all this in my own strength. We need to understand I need God. I need guidance. I need to make sure that I'm doing things for the right reasons. I have integrity. All these I need to have these experiences. And sometimes those experiences come through quote unquote failures. Right. So we can't
Right.
we can't remove it.
Right.
It's important. It's valuable for us. So specific for the purpose in our lives, specific to the path we are to take, that if you remove, you're actually doing more of a disservice
Right.
than a service. We need
Hmm.
to
True.
fall. We need to fall down at certain points. We need to understand that, oh, I can't do all this in my own strength. We need to understand I need God. I need guidance. I need to make sure that I'm doing things for the right reasons. I have integrity. All these I need to have these experiences. And sometimes those experiences come through quote unquote failures. Right. So
Right.
we can't remove it.
Right.
It's important. It's valuable. So
So
I'm happy to hear about the release.
well, yeah, and it's a process. Of course, today, um, almost 20 years later for you and it's, I don't even think about 90% of the things that I used to. So, but it's just about embracing the process. And what would you say, Stephen, regarding feeling respected in terms of your decisions and where I'm concerned, and just over time, like whether I agreed or just didn't agree, um, respect. What are your thoughts about respect, boundaries, feeling that you had the space to be true to what you felt to do,
No.
and how that impacted us? Did you feel that I was holding it against you because you chose not to go the direction that I may have suggested? I'm just curious to.
Yeah, I think it's a blend of all the above
Mhm.
over time, right? I think that my experience is I've experienced you telling me to my face how you feel and what God said, and it is what it is, and that's it. Period. No, end of conversation. I have experienced the opposite end of that, where I just feel that you have so much to say and you're stopping yourself from saying anything. Right. And in those moments, like I have felt like I wish you would actually, because again, that's just my makeup. I'm not necessarily running away from the disagreement. Like, let's have it. Let's hear it out so I can hear every aspect. And I have felt that our relationship has evolved through those punctuated times of maybe one or the other that I just mentioned, to a point where, and this is probably the whole point of the journey in itself, where if I told you tomorrow that God told me to go become an astronaut, I think that you would respect okay. Like, but I think that if I had said that 20 years ago, you like, what are you talking about? Right.
Right.
So the
Yeah.
most off the wall example that I can think of, I think
Right.
because of the experience of maybe having the disagreements and not and being confused by, well, why is he doing this? Why is he leaving medicine, for instance? Why is he changing his career? Why are all these things happening? But then seeing, okay, well, God provided. Okay, and then this happened. Okay, and then this is he's progressing, or he's happier, or whatever it may be. Those are the things that maybe we could talk about another time as well, because I'm not even fully sure of how observing my journey has impacted you. I think maybe recently you mentioned something about from an entrepreneurial standpoint with working with clients, but there's I think from an observational standpoint, as you are dealing with your own internal turmoil at times, it has led to a greater sense of respect for, I think, well, I believe at the heart of hearts that Stephen's intention is good. Doesn't mean it's always going to work out well, but the intention is good. He desires to do the right thing. He's not out here scamming people and cheating people and, being a menace to society. Like, his intentions are to do the right thing. And that's
Right.
the highest level of respect I think you can have for someone is, yeah, if you want to do it, I'm supportive of you. I love you. If I do have a feeling against it, I'll tell you. But at the end of the day, it is your life. And I respect that at the core, that at the core of you, you're good. You're a good person.
And with you saying that, I know that I eventually have found a place of rest
Mm.
regarding all four of my children. None of you are menaces to society. Each of you are productive, positive, forward-thinking citizens. Um, and that reality slowly, just almost like a blanket, just descended and informed and encompassed all the other dynamics. And I got to a place, I arrived at a place where I was challenged to look at my children. Look at your children, Crissina. They're living life. There's ups, there's downs, there's highs, there's lows. However, when I look at each of them, they're good people. They're whole people. They're not they're doing what's right in the with what they have, and they're willing to grow. They're willing to learn. Rest in that, girl. Enjoy that. And so I started saying that I'm a wealthy woman. I feel that I'm wealthy in and rich in the realization that where we are in each of our relationships or what have you, that we're really in a good place when it comes to relationships. And it's like, celebrate that, embrace that, enjoy that. Each relationship's going to be different. There's going to be tensions and times and all of that. But look where you all are. So as I've matured and grown and evolved and all, looking at the keeping the main thing and understanding what the weightier matters are. So therefore, and it takes a whole person to do that. It takes it's because if I was fragmented and broken and insecure and all of those, our dynamics would be way different. So you spoke on that a few minutes ago. My own personal growth, my own personal maturity, me walking out what I've been teaching, what I teach and preach to everyone else. Well, what's good for the goose is good for the gander, you know. So that's really important too for moms to understand that we there's the onus of responsibility is on us as our children become adults to do the work on ourselves and not always point the finger at what this child did, what that child did, and how they offended me and how they're not listening. And because we could be full of complaints. Our kids could be full of complaints toward us. That that could be never ending.
Right.
But if we can stop as moms and say, I did the best that I could with what I had in that moment and who I was in that moment, and understand and acknowledge that there's still more to learn. There's more growth that is needed. And we begin to do that work. I would say that our children, whether we directly communicate that with them or if they just observe it from us, it will inform those relationships
Yeah,
as,
absolutely.
as with us. Yeah.
Absolutely. All right. So we're talking about, going beyond the bouquet, beyond the Mother's Day brunch. This conversation was really inspired by Mother's Day, which is coming up for us in a few weeks here, and really wanting to have a deep conversation around getting to know each other, right? Because as we grow, to your point, we're changing. Each human being is changing over time. And I think that is the best things that we can do is to get better and to work on ourselves over time. So, I wanted to close this conversation up with a final kind of talking point around, well, how do we maintain closeness in the midst of change, right? In the midst of getting older, in the midst of our children or your, parents getting older, children having their own children and their own having their own being married. So there's a mother living in the house with them, right? So my wife is a mother. So thinking about even logistically, how do I continue to treat Mother's Day in the way that I did pre-marriage to even post-marriage, right? Where I want to honor my own wife and honor her as being a mother as well, which I think is another pain point maybe for a lot of parents and kids as they go through that transition, and maybe even also leads to a sense of rejection and a sense of loneliness, to the point that you made about the empty nest transition that you experienced. So I'll start, and then I'd love for you to finish it off for us today. In terms of maintenance, for me, I think really it is it is being interested in the future that you want to create. Like, it really is a letting go of the past. I cannot be 16 years old anymore. I cannot be 25 years old anymore, right? I cannot go back to not being married anymore. Like all of these things, like life just keeps going forward. Like that is the essence of life. It just keeps moving forward, no matter how many stresses we have, and sicknesses, and like all these things, childbirths and marriages and divorces and deaths and all these things. But life just keeps on moving forward. So at any point in time where we want to stop and try to catch that magic feeling from the past and like recreate the thing that we thought was so good 10 years ago, I think we're doing it wrong, like immediately, if we're trying to recapture something from the past. Now, of course, there are elements of our history that we may say, well, that was good. That was a good time. There was something I learned from that I want to be a part of my life. But to a point that, you made in a conversation we had a few months back, is just being very intentional was the word that you used. Being intentional about, well, let's look at the landscape right now. How is the relationship now? What are the elements of the relationship now? What is it that I want? What is it that the other person wants, right? And then how do we find some meeting ground in the middle where we can create something new and something fresh, while also being open to even that changing, right? And maybe each year won't look the exact same, but as long as we are both aligned with the desire to love the other in the way they seek to be loved, and to do the best we can with the tools that we have, to stay in forgiveness, to remain in release and letting go, and all of the things that we've talked about today. I think that is the start of the maintenance, right? That's how we keep it together, because offense is so easy to come in. And thankfully, I don't think we've had this experience, but we've heard plenty of relationships that are very strained. In fact, I talked to a gentleman the other day who said, I don't even talk to my father anymore, right? I don't speak to him at all. And we haven't had that experience. And I think we have not had that experience because of the bond that we do have, but also because I think there is an understanding that we're all doing the best we can. And we all have good intentions, even if sometimes they're not expressed in a way that maybe you wish they were, right? Or that you would like them to.
Well, my goodness, segment 4 has been just as powerful, and we anticipate segment 5, as we conclude this conversation, to be equally as powerful. I just wanted to pop on one final time to remind you to share, to subscribe to our YouTube channel, to communicate, to let us know how you feel, what your comments are, what your reactions are, what your wisdom is, what your thought process is, even what your experiences are. We really want these conversations, if we determine to go forward and have more conversations that we open up to the broader community. We want to know what's on your mind. We want to know how you're viewing things and what your perspective is and what your experiences are. Some of you may even be dealing with some of these challenges right now, and you've not been able to find a resolution. And we would love to be a part of that process for you. Hopefully, over the last 4 segments of this conversation, you've had an opportunity to see how my son and I interact, what our thought processes are, even how we communicate, regarding courageous conversations, being able to articulate that and communicate our feelings and our thoughts with the other person without it being inflammatory or explosive, or without feelings being hurt or what have you. So we look forward to some future conversations regarding a myriad of things, but certainly regarding family dynamics. It's always going to come back down to interpersonal relationships and family dynamics and self-awareness. So this is Crissina Johnson. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. We have one more segment to go. That will be our conclusion. And then we're just going to invite you to meet up with us again live, maybe in the next few days, so we can chop it up a little bit about this topic and hear from you on future topics that you would love for us to discuss, but definitely what you thought about today's conversation. In closing, happy Mother's Day again, and we look forward to seeing you soon. Bye-bye.